tribal or regional.
Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak, and it's time for us to look at the dailies, what's happening this morning. And of course, we'll take some of them and we'll be able to dissect them to the best of our time. The time will be allotted this morning. But let's start with the home front. I mean, a Daily Trust newspaper. And the lead story this morning on a Daily Trust newspaper is it's on Tinubu's certificate. Join me to unearth a truth, Atiku tells Obi and Kwankwaso. Their writers attach the stories, accept defeat, lick your wound, APC tells ex-vice president. CSU in Atiku's case, at Supreme Court on my own, says Peter Obi. NNPP mom. Buhari's government revoked my contracts shared to crooners. And that's coming from Atiku there. You get more insight of the story on page 4 and the Daily Trust newspaper. Let's take a look at just above the lead story. Let's start from the left-hand side. This way, it depends on how you're viewing it right now. A twist in Rivers APC crisis as factions bicker over Amaechi's directive to back Atiku. And the page 12 has details of that story. Senate seeks special security operations in Northwest. Page 8 has more details. Tears as Jigawa elders of forum's chairman Bafa buried in Kano. Page 3 has details of that story. And then we have body of missing Plateau Fulani leader found. Page 35 has that. And then Osun governor of the shooter site as 5 feared dead in communal clash. Page 35 also. And then premarital medical screening law on the way. That's coming from Kano Hisba. Get details of that story on page 20. Then there is a pictorial here. That's the commissioning of Nutridor Dairy Factory. And then that's promotional. And then World Teachers Day, fulfill your promises to us. Teachers tell federal government 3 years after. Page 5 has details of that story. And that's about the stories you find in the front of Daily Trust newspaper today.
Chicago record, Tinubu betrayed me. I will fight till Supreme Court verdict, according to Atiku. This is the lead story on the Punch newspaper this morning. The writers there says Tinubu supported Yar'Adua, PDP, in 2007 presidential election and says ex-vice president. Atiku's political career has ended. He got nothing from Chicago Varsity. That's according to APC. You find this interesting back and forth on page 2 and 3 of the newspaper. Below there we see a pictorial of the Vice President Kashim Shettima. Below the pictorial we have NUT demands more reforms, teachers to undergo internship. You find this on page 10 or 12 and 22. Below the newspaper there, the page says Tinubu approves 25,000 naira monthly grant for vulnerable pensioners. You find this on page 17. Lagos-Abeokuta highway remains a death trap. Motorists lament. You find this on page 5, and this is due to the flood happening on that road. Disregard request for my impeachment, according to Aida Tiwa, who writes to the CJ. You find this on page 8. At the top of the newspaper there, we have depots deserted as petrol landing cost hits 720 naira per litre. You find this on page 17. Manufacturers experiencing toughest period in history, according to MAN. You find this on page 11. And Works Ministry seeks 217 billion naira to repair 260 roads. You find this on page 9. Now, these are some of the stories on the Punch newspaper this morning.
All right, let's move on to Daily Sun newspaper. The lead stories on the CSU certificate saga. No retreat, no surrender on Tinubu, says Atiku. To unpack this, you look at the riders' vows to continue fight until Supreme Court rules and pays tribute to Gani Fawemi for starting battle against President's certificate. The last one says you're a serial election loser. That's coming from the APC. Very savage there. Page 6 has more details of this lead story in the Daily Sun newspaper. And above that, we have terrorism. Supreme Court decides a Kano and federal government fate December 15. That's on page 4 there. And let's take a look at more stories in front of the Daily Sun. Economic hardship to worsen as Abuja filling stations shut down over liquidity crisis and others. Queues return at fuel station. Page 2 has more details. And on trade, Germany contributed £3 billion to Nigeria's economy in 2022. That's coming from the Envoy. Page 9 has details of that story. Then Tribunal opposed election of Nasir Idris as Kebbi governor. Page 27 has details of that story. And then Senate summons security chiefs over abduction of varsity students. Page 4 has more. And then NJI, EFCC seek legislation on unexplained wealth. Page 4 as well. You find details of that there. And we see a pictorial of members of Ogun State branch of Nigeria Union of Teachers in March past, marketing World Teachers Day at the Eagle Square, Abuja, yesterday. So World Teachers Day, Tinubu promises better days as Ekiti teacher emerges best in Nigeria. Page 8 has details of that story. And the final one here says CBN mom as World Bank dubs Naira Africa's worst performing currency. And that story is on page 22 in the Daily Sun newspaper.
All right, let's move to the Nation newspaper there from the top of the page. Says Senate summons service chiefs over rising insecurity. You find this on page 28. School curricula now to embrace info technology and President extols the teachers. You find this on page 30. 2 billion naira palliative cash for Oshun still unspent, says the governor, and tribunal upholds Kebbi Governor Idris' victory. You'll find this story on page 27 and 6 respectively. Below the mask there it says Atiku's frantic hunt for after discovered evidence. Measures, okay, below that we have Shatima seeks banking sector partnership on 1 million digital jobs. I mean, the president promised that. Lead story says APC, Atiku bicker over Tinubu's CSU certificate. I am feeling fresh evidence at Supreme Court. Ex-VP chasing shadows, says the president's Chicago lawyer. Below that we see Forex crisis. The federal government opens talks with the World Bank. We see 8 killed in Oshun communal clash. And there's burnt of houses and motorcycles, a sad situation there you find on page 5. At the belt there it says Supreme Court to rule on Kanu December 15 and 220 million mobile lines active, says NCC. Now, these stories you find and more on the Nation's newspaper this morning. And now we have with us Nuruddin Abdullah, editor of 21st Century Chronicle, joining us to dissect the front pages of the newspaper. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's always a delight to have you here on Friday morning.
Thank you very much.
And happy birthday in arrears. Yesterday was your birthday. I was expecting a cake.
I hope that the cake is outside yesterday and I can...
Oh, okay. So we get a share. All right. So let's start with what is happening in all the major lead stories, of course, of all the newspapers. Atiku saying no retreat, no surrender on Tinubu. There's been a back and forth going on about the president's certificate from the Chicago University. What's your take on the drama happening?
Yeah, I think it is not any surprising. You know, Atiku, who was the presidential candidate of the PDP, the major opposition party, you know. It is natural that the major opposition party should keep the fight going, no retreat until the verdict by the Supreme Court. If he pulls out now, what becomes of the PDP? You know, Nigerians, you know, our political party system is not based on ideologies. It's based on what shall I get. That's why you see all manner of carpeting, cross-carpeting, counter cross-carpeting, you understand. So that is it. So it is expected that this litigation will drag until the Supreme Court decides, maybe by the end of the year. Maybe it can be more than 3 months from now. And he's a professional politician, so he has to prove his mettle to even tell his supporters and associates, yeah, we have tried, but the courts prove otherwise, or something like that. So what he said yesterday is even people that came third are in court. Peter Obi is in court. He came third. So it is natural with politicians, you know, to... Problem is there are people who lost the election, they refuse to go to court, and it affects their political career in the future. They say that they sold out. I know a senator who paired even with one of the major presidential candidates in this election. He was elected into the Senate. The tribunal took him away. The argument in his constituency, and that affected tremendously his political career, was that he chickened out. He was settled by the then outgoing governor of the state. So
we expect more people after any election to come out and fight this in court.
Particularly the major candidates is part of the thing. Atiku yesterday was accusing the president that he betrayed him in 2007 by supporting then President Erdogan in 2007. You understand? And what do you see? If you contest the election against Mardia and what if you, and I come second, and I just say, okay, no, I'm a good Samaritan, that's all. It will affect your political career because some people, your constituents, you know, your associates invested in you. Some financially, some otherwise. And you say, no, try it. We believe that we have been wronged. So let's go to court.
Okay, let's look at this flip side now. Atiku made something that kind of pricked my imagination yesterday. He did mention that Buhari's government revoked his contract and shared it to cronies. Can you say that aside doing these so that his political career would not be jeopardized, there are also self-interests there? Because if he cannot thrive in an opposition government, then there's a problem. What's your take on this?
Yes, you know, he was reacting, if you watch the press conference, he was reacting to a question by one of the reporters there, that you are like, Haji Asmaya said, you know, no retreat, no surrender. Since you have lost at the court of the first instance, of the court of appeal, isn't it enough, you know, align with the ruling party so that, you know, you develop Nigeria? If you don't do that, you know, politicians are very brutal. They can victimize you. Don't you think that they will go after your business interests? It was then that Atiku said, there is no any interest to attack again. He mentioned that his interest in Inters. He formed it during the military era. You know, he ran away during Abacha. His Italian partner, Volpi, you know, was so good. He was a good Samaritan. He kept his shares while he was in exile. When he returned, he took it back to him. You understand? So we saw what happened when Hadiza Bala Osman was at the totem pole at the NPA. You know what happened? He violated this. At the end of the day, they confiscated all the contracts from him. So that's why he said, no, I have nothing to fear. What else? There is no any contract to be taken away from me again. You know, so we see, the guy, Una, you know, he has already born beyond, so there is nothing else you can do. And it is only then. And that is why there are certain people that they cannot do opposition politics. I remember a former deputy speaker, the moment Buhari won it, you have a PDP man, I know him, I covered him at the National Conference, 2014. He was one of the vicious attackers of Buhari and co. But the moment Buhari won the election, you know, they do presidential election, the first one. 2 days later, you know, he came back to APC. In fact, he came on. I said, what happened? He said, you see,
does that count as being smart?
He said, we are minorities, you know, we can't stay in the opposition. Then his head was telling me, he has so many business interests that he's doing with government. He has to be with the government in power to protect, not for appointment or what have you, but to protect his existing business. So that's how Nigerian politicians are.
But in the same climb, should it be working?
Indeed. Speaking about this situation, earlier after the election, there was a rumor that Peter Obi was, creating an alliance with Kwankwaso and Atiku, which Obi came to deny, saying that no, about 50% of what people are hearing are not true. So people kept wondering, okay, what about the 50%? So in the recent speech of Atiku, he made call on these particular people to come and join hands with him. What is your take on all this, situation there?
You see, in the case of Peter Obi, you understand, if you look at his real backers, former President Obasanjo is at the center of it. We read in the papers how Obasanjo was going from poll to poll, trying to pick a credible or big northerner for the Obi ticket. Big names, you understand. But most of them, they decline it. And he ended up with Professor Dati Ahmed of Base University. That's one. And unfortunately, the Peter Obi's votes plus Atiku's votes, far above the Tinubu's votes. Unfortunately for them, instead, in 2015, G5 governors, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar marched with the then ACN of Tinubu, CPC of Buhari, and even NPP, and some faction of ABGA to form an alliance and drive the PDP under Goodluck Jonathan away. That was how Buhari grabbed power in 2015. In 2023, if these three people form an alliance to confront the outgoing, the ruling party, particularly with the bad record Buhari set, and even the confusion in the ruling party, it was clear Buhari never wanted Tinubu to succeed him. I'm not talking about the changing of currency, all manner of things and what if you, they would have formed a government. But unfortunately now they are united in defeat. So it is clear all these votes are PDP's votes, who are traditionally Atikus.
So that would be left to speculations, because the president never came out to say that I don't want Tinubu to succeed me, but those are speculations anyway. But
no, they are real, So
because of the indications, a lot of people attributed it to that. But are there implications to any of this? Because the CSU is speaking to Atiku, and Obi is saying that, I am on my own, NNPP is mom. So what's the implication of this now? Should we expect more drama in a couple of weeks to come?
Not really, because my reading of the situation is this. Atiku was trying to prove a case, like he said yesterday. Not necessarily, because from the trajectory of our Supreme Court, I'm not predicting anything, you understand. The lawyers can speak. It is left for their learned, they say judges they are like immortal, so they don't read newspapers, they don't watch Hajia Mardia or Hajia Sumaya on, they don't listen to your analysis to write their judgment. But from their antecedents, there's this general saying, or is it a substituting Supreme Court case, that you don't introduce new evidence in the appellate process. Even though Atiku's lawyer yesterday, yes, they are based on certain conditions. It's the conditions were made in the US. But that is left for the learned judges at the Supreme Court to decide, you understand? So, but the other thing is this, I think it's a moral thing. Atiku, having lost at the tribunal, he's trying to impugn on the integrity, of the president. Yes, yes, he was in Chicago, but saying that the certificates he presented to that for the admission,
As a
the
fraud.
inconsistencies, the reported inconsistencies, is it Government College Lagos, was it 1970, 1974, you know, all that. So I think that was the target, to impugn on the integrity of President Tinubu,
there's been
particularly
doubt
in the public discourse. Maybe some Western countries, but our Supreme Court, he may bring this, this is a pre-election matter, and that's the end.
All right. Yes,
Oh, they may decide otherwise.
But do you think he has a case though?
I am not a lawyer, and like I said, the landed judges are not watching the TV. They don't watch the analysts. It is their conviction on what the two parts, the counsel for Atiku and counsel for Tinubu, the ability to convince the landed judges. Right? But based on antecedents, upturning a presidential election,
it's difficult.
And because, let me give an instance. There was a case of a traditional ruler who was sacked by his governor. He went to Federal High Court. The Federal High Court said he should be returned because processes were not followed. The state government appealed to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal upheld the decision of the Federal High Court, saying that he should be reinstated to his throne because due processes were not followed. He appealed to that. That case has been dragging for more than 20-something years. The last time we heard of the case is from Northwest Nigeria, one of the prominent, second most important
monarchs.
Monarchs. They adjoined the case, is it Sinadai or something like that?
Yeah.
No date. Then one of my bosses who was experienced, he said, yes, that's what they do. They will wait until either of the parties dies before they will bring the judgment.
Interesting.
A monarch, a prominent monarch has been on throne for more than 20-something years, and if you just to do the judgment based on one illegality to remove him.
We probably would seek the help of the legal
it's not just the law.
Yes.
So we have more to see.
They look at other things.
Speaking of security, Madam Nura, let's talk about the death of the Panyam district head from the Fulani leader from Mangu local government area, Adamu Gagbo, that was found. The report says that he was missing on Sunday, September 24th, but he was found on Thursday, yesterday. His remains, even though earlier after he was missing, he was confirmed missing, there was a report coming out to say that he's been killed. But the police actually came out to debunk that narrative. But now it is out that he's been killed. Why are we coming back to this? I mean, the former administration didn't face this issue of insecurity this much. But right now, it's at its peak. How can we manage this situation in Plateau State?
I think it should be a harbinger of what to expect for the new Governor Mufwang. Plateau is terrible case. Yeah, Lalon has in the 8 years he governed the state. He was able to reach out to all the stakeholders, and we had some semblance of peace. Carnages, yeah, we recorded carnages like in the past, but not as and it is the political will that will solve this problem. Right from 2003, I think from the Shandam crisis upward, I don't think there is anybody in prison over these killings and massacres. So that's a problem. No conviction. There may be arrests, politically motivated arrests, because the police will, if there is no arrest, police will tell you, say, yeah, they have killed this, they have killed, police will go after 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Even if these people are taken to court, we don't know what happened. Let's go back to General Kali, the chief of administration of the army headquarters. There was ambush killed and his body dumped into one of the mining pits. About 11 people were arrested. Where are we on that case? Nobody's talking about it. So, provided people will take the law into their own hands, deprive others of the right, constitutional right to live, and they go scot-free, this thing will continue, will remain a recurring dispute.
But one of the things that we have learned from Jos Plateau State or Plateau State in this context is the fact that, you know, there are parties who are not agreeing with some terms and conditions, and there are some parties who, after meeting up for a peace pact, goes back home and feels like nothing has been taken care of. Now, moving forward, so we don't have this escalate to a level where we see another just crisis. What can the government do, the federal government and the state government at this point?
My understanding is this: the law, first and foremost, before any other mechanism to be deployed, should take it its full course, irrespective of whose ox is God. If Mr. A commits a crime, he must be punished according to the law. He must be punished in public. If Mr. B commits same crime, he must be punished according to the law. That is the only way out. Like I said, there is no single individual, I stand to be corrected, that is in prison for instigating, masterminding, or even executing the massacres in Plateau, irrespective of which parts I'm talking about. Is it the locals or the so-called settlers? General Ali was just passing by when the military, because he was a military man, you remember, he was declared missing. Look at the bodies they were exhumed, even the vehicles. He was just a motorist, a passerby. About 11 people were arrested. It was on the eve of the 2019 election. They were granted bail, and that was the end of it. So, unless if people commit a crime, the police should do their job by making arrests, by investigating, and diligent prosecution. Then that is the only way out. But if not, everybody has a... It's unfortunate that in Nigeria, most of the masterminds of this have held higher positions in the military, in the civil service. But when they retire, they become communal warriors, religious bigots.
We're really pressed.
And what is unfortunate.
We're really pressed on time. These are important issues, but in 1 minute, can you give your take on what's happening in the northwestern part of the country as relates to security? Because the Senate are seeking special security operations in the northwestern part of the country.
Security, I don't know what they mean, special security operation.
You know, because of the abductions, Zamfara has been in news, you know.
Okay, what is special about the new operation to be deployed? As I'm talking to you now, operation Safe Haven is securing Kaduna, Abuja highway. The former is under the DHQ, and the former defense headquarters under Irabo. You understand? They were manning the train. If you are passing the train, you'll see them at intervals. And you'll see their outposts and what have you. The issue is this. It's expected at the, you know, maybe the government is distracted, litigations and what have you. And another thing, particularly in the Northwest, this issue of the president government of negotiation with terrorists. The alleged abductor of the Gusau University female students, there were reports that he felt sidelined when they were doing the negotiation. He was not invited. So he wanted to prove his mettle that he has the capacity to unleash terror. There was a report by one academic from the University of Danford University. Said there are more than, 300 of these terrorist groups operating in the Northwest alone. It's not like Boko Haram that has a political ideology. Who do you deal with? When Buhari Daji was killed, Dogo, Gide, and what have you, they all dispersed and they form all manner of enclaves. We read reports whereby if somebody was kidnapped, ransom was paid. On his way to freedom, he was re-kidnapped again.
That's a big problem.
So you understand this issue of negotiation by some federal agencies, you know.
So it's
the
not
military
working.
should take the bulls by the head and clear this thing once and for all. But negotiating.
Indeed.
That's why, so many commandos, bandits, leaders are coming up to show that, yes, that one is not only the big one, I'm equally big. And how do I prove it?
That's really sad.
Do something drastic.
Really sad. Thank you so much, Malam Nura. Due to time constraint, of course, we have to put a stop and a wrap on the show. Thank you so much, Malam Nuruddin Abdullah, editor, 21st Century Chronicles, for joining us this morning.
Thank you for coming.
Of course. And with that, of course, we wrap up Daybreak on Trust Television. Thank you so much for staying with us. I am Sumaya Abubakar. To have a lovely day.
And they say it's Judgment Day in Abia State as OT and counterpart know their fates today. We'll keep a date with us on Trust TV as we keep you, updated on what's happening in Abia State.